I thought October was the big month for big questions, but I have a really big one, and perhaps it's the biggest of all, to start off November with. Are you making your spiritual well-being a priority in your life?
Yes.
Well, and I want you to just pause. Are you making your spiritual well-being a priority in your life? And maybe a better way to ask the question is how are you making your spiritual well-being a priority in your life? How are you? Because what we know, what we are reminded of on Sunday in this lesson, I mean, we're drawn here for a reason. There's something in us that's called us to be in spiritual community or called us to tune in on by watching a YouTube. There's something that's called us to be a part of this vibrant, loving, spiritual community that expands consciousness and inspires personal transformation. But how are we making our spiritual well-being a priority in our lives? I have a colleague, Reverend Richard Burdick, who's the minister at Unity North Atlanta, and he says this at the end of every Sunday service: if what we have done here stays here, it has been entertainment. If what we have done here goes out these doors and causes you to be more kind, loving, generous, and compassionate, it has been the most valuable hour you could have spent. So, are you taking what you remember here? Are you taking what you know here out beyond the four walls of Unity of Wilmington? Are you taking your spiritual well-being, embodying it, and living it in the world? Are you moving from the good idea to the action? Are you moving from listening to somebody else's story to making this your life story? Oh, that's a whole different ball of wax, isn't it? So now you can say, yes, of course I am. Yes, of course I am. We are starting today the 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity, a simple guide to unlimited abundance. And Reverend Edwene Gaines invites us into trusting God, invites us into that. Well, she doesn't say I dig dog double dare you, but she says I invite you to try this on. I invite you to say to God, prove me now with the spiritual laws. Now, we trust God all the time, more or less, but are we really trusting God? Because principle works all the time. Principles that are spiritual and principles that are in physics. What goes up must come down. And in nature, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So these are spiritual laws that are going on and physics laws that are going on, but they work best, they work most optimally when we work them. When we work them. And she invites us into this powerful practice, beginning with a prayer. Now, on the Unity Facebook, Unity of Wilmington Facebook, I posted Reverend Edwene Gaines reciting the prayer herself, and I tried to download that little thing, and so now we're going to recite it ourselves to begin with, to give us a foundation to start from, to begin anew. So it's in your bulletin. You can take it home. Expressing a brand new magnificence. I open myself to the infinite possibilities that are mine to choose. I open myself to receiving all the goodness I can have and to all the greatness I can achieve. I invite the Holy Spirit to heal my body, to harmonize my emotions, to renew my mind, to fill me now with a mighty faith that empowers me and allows me to commit to be all that I came here to be. Amen. In our Judaic Christian tradition, there are many promises that God has given to us. And that statement is in a paradigm that perhaps doesn't quite fit the unity of today, But there are promises, there are guarantees, there's evidence of our goodness that is just out there in the ethers and in our lives, that is anxious and waiting and going, come on, I'm ready. I'm sure there's some southernism for, come on, I'm ready. Come on, I'm ready. But what is it? Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. Get her done. Oh, well, God, get her done. In Genesis, God says, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you abundantly. In Deuteronomy, it says, may the Lord, the God of your ancestors, increase you 1,000 times and bless you as he has promised. In Psalms, it says, blessed be the Lord who daily loads us with benefits. In Nehemiah, it says, the God of heaven himself will prosper us. Isaiah says, thus saith the Lord, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, I am the Lord your God who teaches you to profit, who leads you in the ways that you should go. There are about 500 verses in the Bible about prayer. And there are less than 500 verses in the Bible about faith. And there are over 2,000 verses in the Bible about money and possessions. In Christian scriptures, 16 out of 38 parables are about money and possessions. And in fact, 1 in 10 verses in the Gospels is about money and possessions. So why is it that ministers on Sunday morning don't talk about money and possessions more often? Because clearly they're a part of the whole of us. They're a part of our complete package as human beings. Edwin writes about an ancient practice that I actually verified on the internet as being an ancient practice, the ancient law called tithing. It was practiced by the Egyptians thousands and thousands of years ago, by the Babylonians, by the Greeks, by the Romans, and by the Chinese. And basically, it's about giving back 1/10. Tithe means 10. Now, the number 10 has all kinds of metaphysical meanings, all kinds of metaphysical interpretations, but basically the number 10 is the power of increase. It's taking our human self, the one, and combining it with infinity, the zero, and making us absolutely amazing manifestors of abundance in our lives. The number 10 also means all this. It resonates with the vibrations and energies of leadership, optimism, confidence, independence, creative power, success, energy, originality, adaptability, determination, and individuality. 10 means a lot. 10 means wholeness. 10 means completeness. When you think about the Bible, how many commandments were there? 10. What's the perfect score when you're an Olympic athlete? 10. What's the distance between the court and the tip of the rim in basketball? 10 feet. And what's the number of the house on Downing Street that the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom lives? 10. And did you know that the length of your hand, if you're an adult, the length of your hand is 1/10 of the height of your body? Now, isn't that cool? What do we use hands for? Giving and receiving, which brings us back to the law of expansion, the law of generosity, the law of giving and receiving, and the law of tithing. Now, from a religious perspective, the law of tithing is about giving back to God. But in a spiritual community, when we talk about tithing, we're talking about giving to instead of back to. We're giving to the source of our spiritual nourishment. So someone who's inspired us, some talk that has really lit a fire under us, some experience that has sent us into the next iteration or expansion of our spiritual well-being, some piece of poetry or music that we've heard. Music is an amazing source of spiritual nourishment, but we give to that because we believe that you're the face of God. You're the face of God. You're a face of God. You're a face of God. This community is a face of God. Reverend Edwene says, at this point, she would just say, poke your neighbor. Poke your neighbor, because she doesn't want anybody to fall asleep. Because people are like, oh my God, this is tithing, I'm tuning out. They're asking me to, participate in a big way. She said, it doesn't matter how many wonderful stories we've heard about tithing, how many successes, how many increases, how many miracles about tithing. This part of the law of prosperity is the one part that people resist the most. I resisted for 48 years. I had lots of excuses of why I couldn't or shouldn't tithe, but when I got ready, I did it. And it was in January of 2007. It was my first gig as a guest speaker at a Unity church, and I felt like I am stepping into my holy purpose. This is what I was born to do, and now that I'm earning money doing it, I'm going to tithe. So I turned around and I took that money that I earned and I tithed on it. And then any money that came to me from teaching or preaching or actually at that point, any money that I earned, I began to tithe on. Now, time went on, and I'm not talking about a whole lot of time. I'm just talking about from January till the end of July. I went to a beach picnic, and I took the truck because the truck was easy to take. I could take all the chairs, the tables, the coolers, the food, the la, 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 la. When I parked the truck, it was in this great parking spot. I got out. I made sure I was in the little corner here. I was in the little corner there. I read the placard that was there that said, don't park here the next day because it's a triathlon. But what I didn't read was the permanent sign up there that said, tow away, lifeguard, parking 24 hours. So now the sun sets, the picnic is over. I come out, and I think the truck is stolen. I'm like, oh, my gosh. Not only is the truck stolen, but it was stolen with the brand new racks on top to put my son's one-man canoe. Not only did it have the racks, but it had a brand new pair of basketball shoes in the back seat for my other son. And I'm standing there going, what am I going to tell? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, I better just call the police. And the dispatcher said, oh, no, dear. Your truck wasn't stolen. It was towed. It was cited and towed, and I told her, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. You can't believe how happy I am. And she said, okay, here's the number of the tow truck company. I called the tow truck company. I said, I understand you have a black Nissan truck, and I'm so happy. And she's like, do you have the right number? I'm like, yes, I'm so happy. She said $186.50. 50 cents in cash. I'm like, no problem. No problem. Where are you? I'm coming right now. So I got there, and I was like this. And I got up to the window, and she said, I know who you are. She said, I've worked here for 30 years, and never, not once, has anybody been happy their car or truck was towed. And I said, I am so happy. I live in an abundant universe. The racks are safe. The shoes are safe. The truck is safe. I am safe. God is good. Here's your $186.50. Okay, so that's pretty good, because I'm tithing. And now, that's Friday. And Monday, I get the mail from Unity of Maui, where I had spoken in January and begun my tithing process. There was a tithe check to me for $186.50. So I do the happy dance in my living room. I mean, I'm like, da, 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 I'm dancing in my living room, 5 minutes, full out, and I go, wait a minute, God, what about the parking ticket? And then in that God voice that only God can do in my head, God said, it's already taken care of. AARP. And I like, oh, The week before, I joined AARP so I could get a discount at a hotel that I was staying for 5 nights. The discount was $10 per night. $50, the whole ticket, right there. I got in my car. I drove to church. I took out my credit card and I said, I am tithing $18.65 right now. And he ran it and I said, oh, I forgot the $50. I am tithing $5 right now. And this is really what happened. Well, I said poke your neighbor, but how many of you have ever seen Reverend Edwin Gaines before? Okay, so she has this saying that goes, that just about blew my dress up. That tow truck experience just about blew my dress up. Because Charles Fillmore, what he says, when you begin to tithe, your faith will increase 100-fold. And I am here, and I know I'm not the only person in the room to say it does, it has, and it continues to do so. Increase 100-fold every time I tithe. So this is how you can tithe. Number 1, God is my source. So our job is not our source. Our investments are not our source. Our retirement fund is not our source. Our mother and father are not our source, unless you're talking about the Holy Mother and Father. And then we're saying, God is my source. Edwin says, go ahead, say it out loud. Together, God is my source. So that's number 1. Number 2 is figure out your total income. So if you get paid once a month, then you look at what you get once a month and you tithe 10% of that. If you get paid on commission, you wait till you receive your commission and then you pay out whatever 10% is of that. I used to calculate everything to the penny. My checks or my credit card to church or wherever my spiritual nourishment was on that particular day was to the penny. And then I moved to Connecticut. And my whole life was turned upside down because I was living in a foreign land, which became my home for a short while. But what I got to notice is I totally lost track of calculating. And when I did my taxes at the end of the year, to the dollar, I had tithed 10% of my income. To the dollar. So find that way that works for you, whether it's intuitive or it's practiced or it's calculated, but figure out what that tithe out is supposed to be for you. And then 3, determine the source of spiritual nourishment. This is how Edwin defines it. Spiritual food is that which inspires us, teaches us, reminds us of the truth, and causes us to remember who we really are. It is the infilling of spiritual energy that reconnects us consciously to the awareness of our own divinity. So it's not charity, but it's that spark. It's that thing that makes our hearts sing, or that experience that makes our heart sing. It might be a Sunday lesson. It might be a book. It might be a YouTube. It might be a poem, or it might be music. I tithe to musicians all the time because their songs most often are what I remember first. It's like that's what comes into my being first. Our songs is music. But that's where the tithe goes. And then number 4, pay the tithe. Pay the tithe. Edwin invokes her granddaddy's wisdom. Honey, if you're going to eat a frog, don't look at it too long. And if you have to eat 2 frogs, eat the bigger one first. And for many of us, tithing is like a frog. I mean, it took me 48 years, and I grew up in unity. It takes as long as it takes. But once we just swallow that frog is no big deal. And the truth is, it ain't going to get any prettier the longer we look at it. So, that's number 4, pay the tithe. Number 5 is to give thanks. To give thanks, to be grateful, and watch the increase that occurs. Watch the surprising places that increase, that expansion occurs. If you tithe money, you will get more money. If you tithe time, you will get more time. If you tithe your talent is going to get better. All of that increases when we participate in the law of tithing. One of the things I love about unity is that there are no musts. There aren't any things that we tell you you absolutely have to do. But what I do know is when we move from idea to action, from listening to somebody else's story to living our own, we have made our spiritual well-being a priority in our lives. We have invited ourselves to affirm, to recognize, to know and believe, and to live our wholeness, to live our perfection. I am whole. You are whole. I am perfect. You are perfect. You are a blessing to the world. Let's sing a Karen Drucker song about being a blessing to the world as we come into a time of meditation.